How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, it's Eric Erickson here. I'm delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. White progressive activists have been caught confronting a black border patroller. No, he is ICE, seeing his uniform, agent. He is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the white progressives are calling him the N-word, specifically house and then the N-word. They're doing that to black officers who are participating in deportations. Not only are they doing that to him, but they claim to have identified the Hispanic Border Patrol agent who shot Alex Preddy. And they are putting up what they believe is his home address online, urging people to avenge Alex Preddy. It was two Hispanic officers who shot him. And the white people are going after the black and Hispanic people who are supporting deportations. You Democrats do that. Also, there is one of the funniest videos I think I've ever seen circulating online right now. It is a vehicle with ICE agents being followed by a group of Subarus. And of course, it is Subarus in Minneapolis. The ICE agents are part of a deportation effort. They go into the roundabout. One of the ICE vehicles splits off to go do the deportation. The other ICE vehicle stays in the roundabout. And the progressives in the Subarus, I'm not making this up, they continue to circle the roundabout with the ICE agent circling the roundabout, who successfully distracts them in the roundabout while the other ICE agents carry out the deportation. It looks like something out of a Looney Tunes cartoon. Literally, two ICE vehicles go into the roundabout, one splits off. The Subarus continue to follow the rear vehicle, and it just drives in a circle around the roundabout while the deportation happens. These people are not bright. They're also deeply racist, calling a black man the N-word because he works for the federal government. Now, I'm going to shift gears here. Belinda, I love you. Thank you for being here with me. And I apologize in advance for what might happen. Friends, let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. This conspiracy is never going to go away. We now have millions of documents from the Epstein files. Folks, there's no there. In fact, people are really outraged at Todd Blanche for saying there aren't going to be prosecutions, because it appears that Jeffrey Epstein was the abuser, maybe Prince Andrew, possibly a couple of others, but by and large, these were a group of dirty old men who were friends with an even dirtier old man. Peter Attia is a health influencer that a lot of you, I suspect, know of. He appears to have been deeply involved with and knew about Jeffrey Epstein's predilections. In fact, Peter Attia, in an email exchange, said the most difficult thing with being friends with Jeffrey Epstein is that he couldn't tell people about Jeffrey Epstein's deviancies. At one point, there appears to be emails of Adia's wife wanting him to come home because there's something wrong with his kid, and he's hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and doesn't want to leave. There is Bill Gates. I said Bill Clinton the other day. It's Bill Gates who allegedly was trying to figure out a way to get his wife antibiotics to avoid her getting an STD that he had contracted, allegedly. There are a lot of men behaving indecently but not abusing young women. What we have, though, is actually serious incompetence from the Pam Bondi wing of the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi's team, in releasing the documents, redacted a good bit of stuff, but you know what they didn't redact? The names of about 70 victims, some of whom were underage and had worked very hard to keep their names out of the press. They've all been released now to the public. Young women who had been abused by Jeffrey Epstein. The Justice Department, they redacted a lot, but not the names of the victims. There were sexually explicit photos released by the Justice Department. Think about this. There were some names that were redacted and some images of children. The faces of the kids were redacted, but there's a bunch of nude pictures, naked women and others being released. But none of it shows lawbreaking. Very few of the emails suggest anybody broke the law other than Jeffrey Epstein. And so many people have built up so much about Jeffrey Epstein and the conspiracy theories about Jeffrey Epstein that the only way they're going to be able to rationalize that there's no there is to presume that there's another massive cover-up of documents that'll never be released. You're not going to, if you're convinced that Jeffrey Epstein was the ringleader of a global satanic cabal of human traffickers, and that is not what the documents show, you're not going to be able to believe it. You're going to have to presume that documents were simply not released. But there's something else here as well. How many of you are going to walk away from a guy like Peter Adia, who, by the way, was never credibly was never a credible person to listen to on health, but a lot of people did because he had a big following and his clout gave him credibility, and he's now been exposed as a really good friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Are you going to stop listening to him now? Or are you going to rationalize, well, his health advice was good, so I'm going to keep rationalizing ways to listen to him? What about Steve Bannon? Steve Bannon had one of the closest relationships with Jeffrey Epstein and spent a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein. And are you people going to continue to will Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation continue to go on his program? What about other members of Congress? Will y'all keep going on Jeffrey Epstein or on Steve Bannon's program? Because, you know, a lot of you people out there wanted to tie Jeffrey Epstein to a lot of Democrats and say anybody who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein needs to be shunned. But, oh, my gosh, it's Steve Bannon. So now let's excuse Steve Bannon, who was trying to rehabilitate Jeffrey Epstein. And you Democrats who are cheering me on, what about Kathy Rumler? Kathy Rumler was Barack Obama's White House counsel, now works at Goldman Sachs, who clearly had a very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and denied helping Jeffrey Epstein with his legal situation. And the emails clearly show that she was deeply involved in helping Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, he was buying her gifts. This is from the Wall Street Journal. When Catherine Rumler, a top Washington lawyer with an elite pedigree, joined Goldman Sachs in 2020, she disclosed a connection that didn't appear on her LinkedIn page, Jeffrey Epstein. But it's what Goldman didn't know about her association with the notorious sex offender, details that have become public in the stream of documents released that now looms over Rumler and the bank. Rumler told Goldman's leaders when they hired her she had business dealings with Epstein when she was a white-collar defense attorney at Latham Watkins. It would later become public she met Epstein dozens of times and exchanged friendly emails for years. It turned out she was in the courtroom when Epstein was arraigned after his arrest on sex trafficking charges, and Epstein had listed her as one of the executors on his will as recently as 2019. Epstein removed her name before he died in August of 2019 while he was in prison. The extent of the relationship has drawn scrutiny inside Goldman Sachs, where the 54-year-old lawyer is general counsel and a top advisor to David Solomon, the CEO. John Rogers, the powerful Goldman executive who brought Rumler to the bank, recently told a close associate he was formulating a contingency plan in which she would leave later this year. He says it's completely untrue. Rumler says she had a professional association with Epstein. You can read the documents themselves. This was more than a professional relationship. Epstein had inner workings of her business life and would get her spa trips and things like that. This was very much not just a hands-off, arm's-length professional relationship. And you don't have to believe me. You can read the documents yourself. But the same goes for Steve Bannon. The same goes for Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon had a very close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Peter Attia, a close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So now, what do some of you do? I don't know the answer to this for you, but I know some of you listen right now. You're big Steve Bannon fans. You're big Peter Attia fans. You've built these people up to be credible, to be influential, to be insiders you respect, who guide and shape and form your opinions. And you have also believed that Jeffrey Epstein was a human trafficker and the people who are the closest people in his orbit have got to be bad people. And it turns out the people you've allowed to shape your opinions on things were the close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So what do? Democrats are trying to make a big deal about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, but the documents actually paint a more complex picture where the biggest allegations in the Jeffrey Epstein files about Donald Trump were actually thoroughly debunked and dismissed, and the only people circulating them are wackadoo progressives who don't care about the truth. But Bill Clinton got a lot of ties to Jeffrey Epstein, videoed or photographed in the pool with women. And here's the bottom line on Jeffrey Epstein. The there that you thought was there was not there. What instead was there was a man accumulating wealth through shady means who cultivated and curated friendships with wealthy and powerful people and put those people in compromising situations and then took pictures of them so that he could use them at a later date if he needed to. Some of them maintained those friendships and took advantage of the women. Prince Andrew, one of them. Lots of questions about Leon Black, who used to be the head of Apollo Global Management until he was forced out over the Epstein ties. Kathy Rumler looks like she had way more of a close relationship with Epstein than she's ever let on. And she worked for Barack Obama. What are you going to do? The conspiracy is never going to die now because the things that people were looking for, the theirs that people were hoping would be there, aren't there. And, I fall back on the same thing. If there was really shady stuff about Donald Trump in there, darn well Barack Obama or Joe Biden would have leaked it. I mean, they threw everything they could to stop Donald Trump during the Biden administration. They indicted him in New York. They indicted him in D.C. They indicted him in Florida. They indicted him in Georgia. They threw everything at him. If there were silver bullets in there to destroy Donald Trump with ties to Jeffrey Epstein, damn well that stuff would have been leaked out by the Biden administration. And instead, what did they find when they looked? They found an insane woman making insane allegations that were ultimately thrown out in court because the woman's insane. So even the Biden Justice Department refused to leak that stuff because it didn't hold up. And yet today, we have progressives trying to smear Donald Trump over this. But we strangely have an eerie quiet on the right about Steve Bannon and on the left about Catherine Rumler. I would suggest to you that if Jeffrey Epstein was that sordid, demented, and evil, and these people clearly had an idea of his evil and depravity, and they maintained their friendships with him, perhaps you should not put as much stock in what they say. And perhaps you should shun them. We have lost shame in this country. We have lost the sense of shame in this country. Maybe things like this wouldn't happen so much if we got that back. And in the meantime, if you're at Goldman Sachs today, you should question why Ms. Rumler's still there. And if you're on the right, you should question why conservatives still go on Steve Bannon's program. Because I was told that Jeffrey Epstein was the leader of a globalist human trafficking movement, and there's a lot to suggest at least 70 young women were abused by Epstein at least. And there are a lot of implications that a lot of the people close to him knew his depravity, and yet they maintained their friendships. So why should we maintain giving them credibility? Hello there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, let me go to Brenda's phone call. Welcome to the show, Brenda. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Great. What's going on?
I just wondered, Michelle and Barack Obama are on the list of people who visited or fraternized with Epstein, and they're never mentioned. It goes straight to Trump, because he's the topic of the day, but just wondered why they're never mentioned.
So they listen, and I realize if you're a diehard partisan here, an Obama hater, you may not believe it, but Trump and Epstein grew up in the same part of the world in New York City. That they ran in the same powerful circles back in the day, so they obviously had an acquaintance there. Bill Clinton did with Epstein because Epstein was a Democrat, but Obama really didn't have a relationship with it. He had plenty of relationships with Hollywood creeps, but not really with Epstein. To the extent he and Epstein crossed paths, it was because Epstein was a big player within Democratic Party circles for a time. But Obama, the Obamas, both Michelle and Barack, have plenty of unsavory people in their orbit, particularly in the Hollywood segment. But Epstein just wasn't in their world. The Epstein relationship was not nearly as concrete with Epstein and Obama. And like with the rumors the left is spreading on Trump that aren't true, there are people on the right spreading rumors about Obama that just really aren't there and not proven in the documents. Got plenty of bad stuff to say about Obama, but he and Epstein weren't in the same world. Now, there's also something else I can say, but I'm not going to. Bad Erickson, stop thinking that. Okay. Also, I got to tell you about Eden Pure, because you can get 3 of them and you can save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. You can get 3 of them and save $200. If you're unhappy, they got a money back guarantee. You will be happy because they eliminate odors. They're small. You can plug them into the wall, plug them in with a USB cord. I keep one in my travel bag because they're highly portable. And if I'm in a hotel room or a rental car that someone smoked in, it'll wipe out those odors, wipes out every odor. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. They really do work. You get 3 of them upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV, wherever you need them. They get rid of pet dander, dust, pollen, because they're an air purifier. They also eliminate all odors. No odor can stand up to an ozone that it produces like odor bleach and just wipes out odors at the source where you can't reach the Eden Pure can. EdenPureDeals.com, the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. Phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. By the way, one of the side effects with the Epstein stuff is kind of the moral panic it has created. There's a picture that has been released of an education leader. I'm not going to say his name. You can understand why when I tell you he's a billionaire funder in education. And his picture was released with 3 young children whose faces are redacted. Someone circulated this online and said, we need to know this guy's name. Look at him. He's surrounded with children on Epstein's Island. This man is pictured with his children on vacation. It's his children he's with on vacation. It is nothing related to human trafficking. Human trafficking, by the way, it's a real thing. And it's a thing we need to be concerned about. And I also think that a lot of the hype on the Epstein stuff potentially, because it hasn't played out, could get people to be somewhat dismissive of human trafficking. But it is a very, very real thing. It's a very real thing. And I just it's something. I want to shift gears from this sordidness, though, because I got something I'm been meaning to talk about. There's some data on this, and we got to pivot to it. For as long as I can remember. By the way, I'm sorry, I got to pause. There's some breaking news here. The House of Representatives has just passed the Senate Appropriations Bill to reopen the government, so the very short-lived government shutdown will now be no more. It'll be signed by the president later today. The government will reopen. Not that any of you even knew the government was shut down. Very little of it was actually closed. But now, let me pivot. For as long as I can remember, if you are college educated, you can lose your job and be unemployed, but the odds of you being unemployed were far less than for non-college educated Americans. For Americans without college degrees, unemployment has always been higher than for Americans with college degrees. Side note, Americans with trade skills and technical degrees have always had higher unemployment than college-educated Americans, but also get off unemployment a lot quicker than Americans with college degrees if they go unemployment. Why? Because if you're a plumber, you may bounce between jobs, but everybody needs a good plumber, and you can pick up quick. At this point, though, according to the Wall Street Journal, college-educated Americans and blue-collar Americans, non-college-educated Americans. I'm trying to find a way that doesn't sound pejorative because they're not uneducated. Oftentimes, they're smarter than the college-educated people. They just don't have a college degree. So people without a college degree and people with a college degree now are at parity. Particularly white-collar Americans with college degrees are beginning to get hit by not just AI, but efficiencies in general. That's the problem with AI, and that's the problem that's going to have to be dealt with, is that people with college degrees who just come in at bottom of the rung jobs are having those jobs displaced by AI. A buddy of mine was telling me the other day he had to do a presentation on a loan document and what the implications are of the loan based on how much money was going to be borrowed, the down payments and all that. He said in the past he probably would have found someone to help him do it, and instead he put it in Claude, the AI agent, and Claude did it for him, prepared the whole presentation for him. Claude couldn't do his job. But Claude could do the job of an underling, of an assistant, of someone right out of college. There are going to be fields that I think to a degree are protected. A lot of lawyers are going to be protected in large part because of something many of you don't realize. When you go to law school, one of the classes that you take in your first year of law school, and they'll call it different things, but basically it's library. Those of you who are old, y'all remember the card catalogs from when we were kids. For those of you younger than me, you used to go to the library and there was a big box full of small drawers, and you'd pull out the drawers. They were arranged in alphabetical order, and there were cards, and you'd flip through trying to look for a book. You could find the code. You knew what was the system now called? The Dewey Decimal System. And you would go find your book based on the card catalog. And then it got digitized and people could put in books, and you go to the library and you could find the book. It is very hard to do legal research. Have y'all ever wondered this? Let me describe this system for you. And nowadays, a lot of it is you have a program called Westlaw. Westlaw is a proprietary system where every single court case and statute in America is in Westlaw. And you can put in the key legal words, and it can bring up the cases, and then it can keynote the cases so you can follow the case to see, was the case overturned? Was the case modified? Where was the case cited? You do an entire class in this library, legal research, as a first-year lawyer. Those of you who are practicing law right now, you remember you would go in, and in Westlaw, they have an entire key system. And the key is the little symbol, and you have key words, and you can go, and let's take adverse possession. Adverse possession is something very simple for you to understand. It's one of the very first things you learn in law school because you have to read a bunch of court cases to be able to understand the rule of adverse possession. And adverse possession is conjured from English common law, and you can read court cases, and they're very easy to understand the rules of adverse possession. What is adverse possession? It is when you control land that you do not own, you manage the land open and notorious, and you do so for a certain number of times, and it varies by jurisdiction, but generally it's 15 years. So, for example, there is a plot of land next to my house, and for 15 years, we have mowed this land, we have maintained this land, we have propped up this land, and we've done it all, and all of my neighbors think that I own this land, but I don't. I could file an adverse possession claim on this piece of property, because it is my wife and I keep it mowed, we keep it trimmed, we keep the weeds out of it, we manage the erosion on it, we manage the trees on it. We've done this for 15 years in Georgia. It's open and notorious ownership. Everybody in my neighborhood even thinks it's my land. In fact, when something goes wrong with the land, we get the homeowner complaints on the land. I could claim this land. Haven't done it. Not sure I will, but for 15 years, we've maintained this land, even though it's not ours, and we've done it actually because otherwise it would get overgrown and there would be problems and snakes and trash and vagrants and all that sort of stuff, so we've taken care of it. That's adverse possession, and there's an entire body of law on adverse possession. And so you can go into the Westlaw system, you can put in adverse possession, put in Georgia, and I can find every case in Georgia about adverse possession. And then it will flag the biggest cases about adverse possession, and I can find the biggest cases on adverse possession, the ones that went to the Georgia Supreme Court, the ones that are cited the most, the ones that shaped the law, the ones that are the most current cases, and I can write an argument for myself that I own this plot of land based on Georgia's adverse possession rules under various Georgia Supreme Court cases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. An AI chatbot like Claude or ChatGPT cannot do that. Do you know why? Because they don't have access to Westlaw. I believe Westlaw is putting some AI in, and so is LexisNexis, which is comparable. LexisNexis has a database of all the newspapers that were in print before the internet existed, so you can do searches of articles back from the 1950s and 60s in LexisNexis. But you got to have a membership, you got to have, and you got to pay. It's expensive. Whether it's the printed page or whether it's the computer system, legal research is kind of siloed from the rest of the world. It's a very unique form of research. You have to have someone who's trained in it to be able to do it. And what we're finding with the AI chatbots is that they make up cases and they find cases that have been overruled and don't know it. So lawyers are probably okay, but computer programmers at the lower level, probably not. Architecture firms, I've talked about that one. My son's school, if he makes it into Sanford, and please, people at Sanford, let him in and give him a scholarship, they're already teaching the incoming freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors about AI and how to use it in like the architecture firms, and also how to have extra skills so that when you come in, you're going to be higher than where the AI is. White-collar jobs are being impacted by AI. Blue-collar jobs, not so much. Lawyers and plumbers and electricians, good luck getting the robot to wire the house or plumb the pipes or get rid of the clogs or put in the dishwashers and all that. It's not going to happen. So white-collar workers for a while now have been separating themselves from blue-collar workers and how they vote. White-collar workers have more and more moved Democrat. Democrats protect their interests. They think their social interests, their social status. In fact, for the party that vilifies the Republicans as the party of the rich, the Democrats have become the party of the ultra wealthy. Because the ultra wealthy leave hedonistic lifestyles the Democrats support. Wealthy Democrats want abortions. Wealthy Democrats want access to legal drugs. Wealthy Democrats want to live hedonistic lifestyles, knowing that it's the blue-collar workers of America and the poor who are going to have to deal with the migrants and the immigrants and the crime and all of that. They don't want you to have guns, but they want security. They live in a world different from us. And white-collar workers, as they've gotten wealthier, have more and more moved to be Democrat. The problem for those white-collar workers is that the Democrats are really bad on AI issues. And they're going to start losing their jobs. And when the Democrats start losing their jobs, the white-collar Democrats, they're probably going to become more Republican. They had been more Republican. It's interesting to watch the white-collar workers of America invent technology that is going to put the white-collar workers out of jobs. And the blue-collar workers are going to keep their jobs because they have talents and skill sets a lot of the white-collar guys don't. Look, I am absolutely clueless. We've got to have somebody come look at our dishwasher tomorrow. It's got a drain problem. It leaked. I can't fix it. I'm incompetent when it comes to stuff like that. I'm putting together a squat rack in my office. It's taken me 4 days to figure out which tools I need to put it together. Now, I can put it together once I got tools. I had to get some tools because we didn't have the ones at home I needed. I can do that. Not well, but I can do it. But putting together furniture, plumbing, stuff like that, nope, no way, no how, can't do it, totally incompetent. I can do a legal brief. I know how to do that, something most of you can't do. And that's a job that's going to last. But for a lot of the white-collar workers out there at the bottom rung of accountancy and computer programming and stuff, they're working their ways out of jobs. And you know what's happening as they're losing their jobs? They're more mad at a system that allowed this to happen, and they're moving back to the GOP. And that's a problem for the Democrats as these people more and more lose their jobs and realize the Democratic Party protected their sexuality and their access to drugs and hedonism, but didn't protect the jobs they had that provided them the wealth with which they could prop up their hedonistic lifestyles. It's actually going to be kind of funny to watch this shift happen. To the phones, last caller of the day. Gary, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric. How are you today, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Listen, almost 50 years of industrial construction, pipe fitter, pipe welder, and even welding inspector at the end. Guys that work on the construction side, not maintenance. Maintenance sides, sometimes you can get some long runs. Construction side, you work yourself out of a job. So, and usually it's 6 and 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. So when you get laid off, that's your vacation time. Take your wife on a vacation. You fix the cars. You go hunting. You do all the things you want to do that you can't do when you're working 6 and 7 days a week. And then sooner or later, somebody's going to call and say, hey, I need a good welder. I need this. I need that. Or if you're union, the hall will call you and say, you need to go your butt back to work. We need welders on this job. And that's the life. And it pays pretty good.
I have heard it pays pretty good. And yeah, I got to tell you, Gary, would be incompetent to do it. But I have a number of friends like you who are in the business, and you're right. They do these jobs, and between jobs, there's downtime. They have made a lot of money. They take their vacations, and there's always going to be a job waiting for them. It may be hard during economic slowdowns, but they're going to get the job back, as opposed to the white-collar guys like in technology. If you're over 40 and lose your job in tech, you may never work in technology again. It is a wild dichotomy. I've been tried to help a guy find a job and was unsuccessful. He was a new computer programming and the like, works in Nashville, was in desperate need for a job, been out of work for 2 years, cannot get a job because he's a white male over 40, and it's hard to get jobs in technology if you're a white male over 40. And it's sad to see this happen to so many people. And what's happening is a lot of these guys who are in that situation were not necessarily Trump fans, and they suddenly have become Trump fans because the system for which they were in for so long has turned against them because they're a white man over 40. And, well, those people are going to go vote. And that's why I think in November the Democrats probably can't take back the House, but they're not going to sweep as big as they otherwise would because so many people are so mad at the Democrats nationally because of stuff like this. Greetings and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I got to give you your laugh for the day, and I should have tied it into the white collar story. Do you know what Jains are? And I may be mispronouncing what Jains are. Jainism. It is an Indian religion of nonviolence towards all living creatures, with a very strict diet as a result of it. So at Stanford University, the food service is known to not be good despite paying $7,944. And the students can get exempted if they have a religious dietary restriction. And so a lot of students at Stanford have claimed to be Jains. And as a result, they can't eat food that could cause harm to living creatures. That includes small insects and root vegetables. As a result, they get their $7,944 back from Stanford, and many of them are going to Whole Foods to eat. They're just gaming the system at Stanford, and they see nothing wrong with it. They're just proud of how they have gamed the system. And there is just something, I think, unethical about people who find these ways to game the system as opposed to fixing the system. And they see nothing wrong with it at all. There you have it. While I've been on the program today, I have had 4 spam calls on my phone. And that's actually far less than what I had been getting. And I've noticed the reduction in spam calls that I've been getting since I started using Incogni. Incogni is spelled I-N-C-O-G-N-I. Incogni goes online to the data broker sites that can sell your phone number and your personal information and generate the spam calls and generate the scams and harassment and doxing. And Incogni works behind the scenes, deleting your information from the internet. You don't have to be some VIP. They treat you like one. And right now you can sign up at Incogni, I-N-C-O-G-N-I, Incogni.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Get 60% off at Incogni, and they will start working behind the scenes, wiping your information from online. They work as your representative, going to these sites, sending takedown notices, and they keep working day and night. Incogni.com/Eric, E-R-I-C-K, Incogni.com/Eric.